Tennessee Homestead, how in the heck are you today? And I'd like you to hang around to the end, because I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about, it won't take much, about a new grassroots organization that is forming up. Got some pretty good people involved in it. We need to get back into being the republic that our founding fathers asked us to be. Right now we got the world out against us, and they're winning. They're winning. Okay. This de-dollarization thing and so forth, you probably haven't noticed it yet, but your dollar is getting more and more and more worthless with each passing month. We've got problems coming, and we need to start addressing those. They think that their job is to spend money they don't have. We're going to have to get them back into functioning like a business. Got a lot of experience with that. Simple to do. Anyway, I can understand a country overspending. Let's say they go to war with somebody. Now, I'm all for our country declaring a war and going and fighting it, because that involves all of Congress has to agree and so forth. It's more of a deliberate thing, not like these presidential powers. Those were originally intended by the founding fathers to be, if somebody attacked our border, the president could immediately send troops. Okay? We have now morphed that into, we'll send troops all over the world to start little wars, and Congress never does declare a war on the little country. They just go over there and bomb the snot out of them. That's not right. So we need to get back to that. You want to go to war, you declare one. If it's not serious enough to declare one, you stay the heck out of there. Work it out other ways. Okay, this was the last time we was in a real war was in the 1940s. Speaking of wars, you ever think that the government may be lying to us a lot? Yeah, they are. They got the best air defense systems in the world. The best. Patriot system, they have learned how to defeat that very, very rapidly. Very rapidly. Okay. So, the Russians are showing us that we're not as tough as we think we are. I don't want to degrade our American servicemen. They are trained for the wars they've been fighting, which are against a bunch of brown people in sandals and turbans with AK-47s and some RPGs and a few IEDs. Okay? This is an entirely different war. We don't want to get into it. They'll tear us up. That simple. The new S-500 system that they've been testing can grab onto and spot stealth bombers, stealth fighters, things of this nature. So getting air cover up to protect our troops isn't going to happen. Okay? It's not going to happen. It's kind of the reason why Russia, if people notice over there, they keep letting the Ukrainians come to them. The Russians' air defense system, to where they can't get air support. They can't fly helicopters in there. They can't fly jets in there and bomb, so forth. Can't get any air support. That's a problem. They're fighting an entirely different war. They stand off the long distance and just beat them to death. Anyway, I missed all that in Biden's speeches about the Ukraine. I really did. I didn't see him talking about that in 2020. I think he was lying to us. But let's get on to what I really want to talk about here, and that's your government and the way they spend money. Some of the perks, though, that our government got out of this whole thing with Russia is we seized up $300 billion of their money that they're holding in the U.S. to do trade, and we stole it from them. Yeah, that's what the sanctions is all about. Sometimes they just freeze assets. Usually, though, they freeze your assets first, make it sound like, we're not going to steal it from you, but they do steal it from them. Yeah, they finally decide, we'll take it. $300 billion worth. You know what? That pays for the U.S. federal employees in Washington, D.C. for 1 year. Yeah. Ain't talking about the Pentagon either. I'm talking about federal employees that work in Washington, D.C. you're talking about $203.77 billion a year in payroll, not including benefits. That is based on the number of employees that they've got there. And that's at $71,000 a year median income spread out over all the employees, which most of them make $100,000 plus. So that's low, folks. That's a very conservative number. Alrighty. One interesting fact is during World War II, you want to get the topic of the Pentagon. In World War II, there was 12 million men and women under uniform, under arms, fighting that war. And we had either 6 or 7 four-star generals that was directing that battle. Think about that. 12 million men and women. You had 6, possibly 7. I've been told that there's 7, but I don't know who he was. But okay. Let's go with the 7 four-star generals. Today, we have 1.43 million people in uniform. Down from 12. 1.43. We have 47 four-star generals running around. 47. Sounds to me like we got too many chiefs and not nearly enough Indians. And we're paying the salaries on these clowns. And you can keep on going down the layers in the same thing, 3 stars, 2 stars, 1 stars, colonels, blah, 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 blah. They are so thick in the Pentagon that they trip over each other. Military is bloated with officers. All large companies, I've put this down here, and all large companies, when they get into financial trouble and nearing default, now keep in mind, our Federal Reserve has almost had to default 3 times now this year. 3 times. They've been going back to their allies, to like Japan, South Korea, so forth, asking them to buy bonds. Yeah, Japan cashed in a bunch. So did South Korea. They sent Janet Yellen over there to get them to buy them back because it put us in negative turf. More or less, your government wouldn't have had any money to operate with. None. It's the way the system works. The government sells bonds to other countries and big corporations, things of this nature. That gives them the dollars that they can hand out to the government to spend. That's the way the system works. Almost defaulted on it all. Our debt has gone from $600 billion a year to raise the interest to get people to buy more bonds. Now we're over $1 trillion a year. Okay. So our budget has grown by $400 billion. Don't even want to talk about the amount of money we have poured into Ukraine, because I've noticed now the government's beginning to lie about how much they poured in. They're cutting it back. Well, we've only put in $100 billion. Really? Let's get back to this whole thing. Too many chiefs, not enough Indians in the Pentagon, not enough military, and we have been buying military equipment at expensive rates. $500 million for a missile in the Patriot system? $500,000? Seriously? Russians are putting a higher tech missile in their defense systems for about less than $100,000. Of course, they manufacture their own. Yeah. We are spending to companies like Boeing, Raytheon, and I worked for Boeing. I can tell you right now, when we pulled a bunch of paperwork out of a dumpster one night and was all sitting around cackling because it showed us all of us guys that was working on those AWACS, okay? We were making 5 times what we were really making, according to their paperwork, because it's a cost-plus contract. So these defense contractors are absolutely raping the Pentagon, and the Pentagon doesn't mind because they turn the other cheek, because when they get out of the Pentagon, they go to work for these clowns. Yeah, that's the way it works. We are getting taken to the cleaners. Maybe we ought to let Russia or China build our military equipment. They seem to do it for, a lot less money. That's the reason their militaries are like they are now. When a company gets in this kind of a boat, and I've been there, done that, had to be one of the guys making the decisions in one company. Your first thing you look at, you kind of trim around the edges, but you got to keep your company running. You got to have materials to make things, so forth. Employees. Usually, depending on how bad your situation is, you're talking cutting 10, maybe 20% of your staff. All the way down, from the corporate office down to the factory field, So let's look at that for just a minute. Let's say we did that. We have let's see here. Let me look at my notes so I don't say this wrong. If the government used standard business practices, we have 2.87 million federal employees. 2.87 million employees. Washington, D.C. Yeah. No wonder they're spread out over 3 states. So let's say, as a businessman, I said, okay, we're really in a bad spot, and we're about to default on our bonds and things of this nature, which will get us downgraded again on our credit, which will put us in a junk bond area, and the whole world's going to come shaking bombs at us going, we'd like to cash these in now, and we're not going to be able to cash them in. We're going to default, which is going to earn us a lot of kudos with the world. Janet Yellen and the Federal Reserve have been fighting like tooth and nail to keep from defaulting already. 3 times they got near default. So let's say we made a 20, and the numbers will set you back a little bit. So if we had to make a 20% cut of employees, all right, on the federal level, you're talking about 574,000 employees need to go. 574,000 employees. Now, if we went with the median wage that I used to calculate these numbers of 71,000 a year, but at 71,000 a year, what it saved the federal government is $40.754 billion a year. 20% of the employees go. Yeah, it means everybody else is going to pick up the workload, just like us civilians have to do. All right, our unemployment starts going up. They cut people back. Guess what? The guy that gets to stay, he gets to pick up the workload. That's the way it works. Government have to pick up the workload. Believe me, I've worked with federal employees. They're not working that hard. But even to add a 10% cut, that'd be 287,000 employees and $20.77 billion a year saved. But then there's the benefits. And they got some good ones, okay? Some really good ones. Why aren't we doing that? We're beginning to lay off people. Why isn't the government? We could probably start with Congress. Would be a good one. Matter of fact, let's talk about Congress for just a second. Why do we have 2 houses of representatives? Think about that one for a minute. A House of Representatives is one that's elected by the people, strictly by vote. And the Founding Fathers even said that's going to be kind of a madhouse. We know that. Okay, because all of them is going to be trying to take care of their individual constituency and give them all the gifts they can. Then you had the Senate. The Senate, they always called a deliberative body. Okay, they're supposed to be the ones who sit back and look at this and go, hell no. The Senate, under our Constitution, could either be elected by people of a state. It's the reason there's only 2 of them per state. Or they can be appointed by the legislator of a state. Or they can be appointed by the governor of a state, depending on how the state set up their laws. I.e., they are serving at the will of the states. Used to. Until 1913. And our government came to us and said, hey, that's causing a lot of gridlock. We need to get rid of that. Thus came the 17th Amendment and made it elected. Trust me, if that senator sitting there knows he doesn't have to go talk to the people on about coming back into office. He needs to make sure he does what his state and his state legislature says to do. If they say you're going to vote against this bill, he votes against that bill. See, because the Founding Fathers realized if you had the people who are going to request the world, And the states who have to run the states, they're going to have to come up with some kind of an agreement to pass a bill. That's the way our government was designed. It was designed for gridlock. We've turned it into 2 houses of representatives. So right there, we could cut back. We could either run with the 100 we have in the Senate and call them the House of Representatives, and we'll just cut off a whole legislative body. And I think they make about close to 200,000. There's 400 and God knows how many in the House. We could save a fortune. Or we could repeal the 17th Amendment and turn those guys back over to the states. When you think about it, what they did with the 17th Amendment was they stripped the states of their power to be represented in the government. Your state has no power. It has no right to stand up and fight. The federal government wants to do something that's actually going to cripple that state. They got to go along with it because they have nobody representing. Yeah, okay. See how it works? 17th Amendment's one that I'd strongly like to see gone. Let's get this back into the real-life Constitution. And this thing went way, way, way long. But one last thing. I'm going to edit a bunch of this out, but this will be in there. Back at the beginning of all this, before Russia ever went into Ukraine, there was a report, and this was back in like 2013, 2014, when we started the proxy war over there. The RAND think tank came up with this plan of using Ukraine, building an army, attacking Russia, or getting Russia to attack them, possibly use all of NATO's weapons and all of the US's weapons and all the ammunition and beat Russia. Because Russia had a small army. Yeah, they just didn't count on the Russia is full of Russians. And they ain't going to put up with that crap. They're tough people. They went after them. And I wonder why Russia did that. Why did Russia know how serious this was going to be? Because they had a copy of that RAND report. Yeah, our security isn't as tight as we think it is. They knew what they planned. They planned to use Ukraine to overthrow Russia, and then they were going to bust it up into 5 little sections, and the West was going to take every resource Russia had, because the West are thieves. That's your government. The government needs to cut their budget back to about $4 trillion a year, because that's what they make in Texas. One more thing I'll stick in here. Russia and China both have a good income coming into their countries just in taxes. Very successful with it. You know why? They have a flat tax. 13.5%. Both those countries have a 13.5% flat tax. You make $100, you make $10 million, you pay 13.5% of it. No deductions, no BS, 13%. Yeah, and we have politicians who sit around going, the rich don't pay their fair share. Well, you suckers wrote the laws. Back in the 80s, Reagan wanted to get a flat tax so that you didn't have to worry about the rich guy. He would be paying his fair share. They've been lying. Settled for nothing short of that. This is Rich Tizzy Homestead. I love you guys. I appreciate you. Before I go, get your pen and paper out, because you're going to want to know this. Go to ourcountry, ourchoice.com. They'll send you off on an email, probably to the colonel, to let them know you're interested in doing something to help this country. This nonsense needs to stop before we disappear. Because if we don't stop it, the world will stop us. The world will bankrupt us. All the indicators are pointing. We got it coming right now, coming at us. You're going to see inflation go up. By the way, inflation, they dummied those numbers back in the 1970s to try to save Jimmy Carter's butt, and everybody else is stuck with them. If they tell you it's a 2% inflation, it's 4. If it's 6, it's 12. It's doubled. True inflation, what you pay. Wake up, America. Love you guys.